Hey, it's Tuxedo Mark. It's 11:20 p.m. on Thursday, November 11, 2021. And I just wanted to do a review of Quantum Leap, the TV, um, mostly because sadly, yesterday I learned that Dean Stockwell, one of the two main actors of the TV series, died back on November 7th at the age of 85. Hey, Random Cactus, thanks for joining me. Um, okay, so Quantum Leap is a series that aired from 1989 to 1993 on NBC, but I did not watch it back then. Apparently, it aired from March 26, 1989 to May 5th. Season 1 was very short. It was like 8 episodes, but the first episode was double length, so it was kind of like 9 episodes. And the rest of the series, the last 4 seasons, were 22 episodes each. So it's like 97 episodes total. And I did not, I really started watching it only in syndication on cable. My family had cable on 3 separate occasions in the 1990s, and I believe I started watching this around 1995 on the USA Network. It was airing weekday mornings, like super late at night, like after midnight. So I would always program it, like program the VCR and watch it the next day. Sometimes I would try to watch it, or at least start to watch it while eating breakfast while waiting for the school bus, but usually I would have to wait till I got home after school to watch it. Um, so what's the series about? Well, there's two main characters. The main character's named Dr. Samuel Beckett. He's played by Scott Bakula. And he's a quantum physicist that theorized that it was possible to time travel, but only within your own lifetime. Um, so he created a project called Quantum Leap. According to some of the narration given, he led an elite group of scientists into the desert, and he created a top secret government project called Quantum Leap. And it's indicated that Quantum Leap is based in New Mexico. All right, so around the place where they set off the first atomic bomb, actually. So you can pinpoint fairly closely where it's supposed to be. So at one point, they're threatening to cut off his funding because the project apparently has been given like this insanely high budget, like over $1 billion per year or something like that. But they haven't had any results yet. So he decides to step into the Quantum Leap Accelerator. It's like a nuclear accelerator type thing, and send himself back in time. And his best friend, Albert Calvici, is a rear admiral in the Navy, and he's also working on. Sam had brought Al in on Project Quantum Leap because the two of them had previously worked together on some project called Starbright, which is kind of mentioned a bit throughout the series, mostly early on, but they never really delved into what that was about. So Al Calvici is played by the late, great Dean Stockwell, who, as I said, died just 4 days ago, but I only heard about it yesterday. I had shown up a bit early for work, so while sitting in the break room, I was browsing on my phone, and I learned that he had died back on the 7th. Anyway, so Al is the project observer. What he does, well, first of all, he gets contacted early in the pilot episode while he's driving along a lonely stretch of desert road. He picks up a girl or a woman that had a flat tire named Tina, and they're driving along, and he all of a sudden gets a call from the project from the head programmer named Gushy. Yeah, his name is Gushy. That's the only name that they give in the series itself. I think some of the novels say it's a nickname, but I think his name is like Dr. Irving Gushman in the novels, but in the show, all that we get is Gushy. So he's informing Al that Sam is sleeping. And so Al speeds to the project. He takes Tina with him because I guess he has no choice pretty much. But Sam has gone back in time. So Al, the way that what Al does, he's the project observer. He basically has to make contact with Sam whenever he leaps, and they communicate through something called neurological holograms. Basically, Al walks into a giant, spacious blue room at the project called the imaging chamber. And it projects a three-dimensional hologram of Sam's surroundings, wherever Sam is back in time. That's sent to the imaging chamber, and it appears to Al as a hologram. And at the same time, where Sam is in the past, Al appears as a hologram to him that only Sam can see and hear. And that's how they maintain contact with each other. And Al's job is to consult the computer that Sam had created, called Ziggy, or at least Sam says that Al calls it Ziggy. Ziggy has been fed with information by Gushy of like all of the news sources from the National Archives and any other kind of news sources from around the country, dating back throughout all of Sam's lifetime. And as we eventually learn, Sam was born on August 8th, 1953. So that's technically the furthest date back that he can time travel to. But that's been violated a couple times throughout the series. But anyway, when Sam travels through time, he ends up inhabiting someone else's life. Basically, he takes that person's place in the past, and that person is sent to the waiting room at Project Quantum Leap. It's another giant blue room with really no furnishings or anything like that, except like a white table with like a mirror surface. Now, what's interesting is that when he has leaped into that person, he sees that person's reflection in the mirror, and everyone around Sam sees the person that he leaped into. So Sam is basically impersonating the person that he leaps into. And Al has to figure out, through consulting Ziggy, and why I'm doing this is because Al has a thing called a hand link that looks kind of like a calculator, or I guess you could say a smartphone nowadays, or something like that. And he uses it to access Ziggy and get information. I'll get into handling in a bit, but so Al has to make contact with Sam, find out who Sam has leaped into, where he is, when he is, and try to figure out, or Ziggy tries to figure out, why Sam is there. Because Sam's whole reason for creating Quantum Leap was to, quote, put right what once went wrong. So they have to figure out what went wrong in this person's life, and so Sam can fix it. And then he'll leap out. Now, here's the problem. I'm pretty sure that Sam's whole setup for doing this, what he thought was going to happen, he'd step into the accelerator, he'd leap somewhere in the past, he'd fix whatever was going wrong there, and then he'd just leap back home. And he could just leap as leisure whenever he wanted. But something or someone has apparently taken control of his leaps, where the project can retrieve him. They try retrieving him in an early episode. They actually have a thing called a retrieval program. It didn't work. Sam leaped out of who he was in and leaped into like the next person over, basically. It's like they don't really say anything, but it's like whoever took control was like, you ain't leaving. They tried once again a few seasons later. It didn't work again. But yeah, so when Sam accomplishes whatever he's there to accomplish, he leaps out, the person in the waiting room leaps back in, and Sam leaps on to his next assignment, whatever his assignment is, whatever, whoever or whatever took control of the project decides Sam is supposed to do next. They kind of theorize over who or what is doing this to him. Is it God? Or is it like some kind of personification of fate or time or whatever? They don't know. If you've ever seen a series like from a bit earlier in the 80s, it was called Highway to Heaven, and it starred Michael Landon. My mom used to watch that, but strangely enough, a few years ago when I got her watching it on Netflix, she eventually gave up because she thought it was dumb. But that one was about an angel, or at least a potential angel, that was kind of like on probation. He had to like earn his wings. So he kept traveling around America on assignment to help people out in their lives. And he had an older guy as a traveling companion that was helping him out. So Quantum Leap is basically the same basic thing, except instead of the religious aspect, it's like a science fiction aspect. And on Highway to Heaven, the character, I forget what his name was, but he was just himself, and he wasn't traveling through time. He was just traveling across the country. So on Quantum Leap, Sam is always a different... He's pretending to be a different character in each episode as he's sent through time at the various places around the country. And most of the time he stays in America. I think once he went to Egypt and once he went to England, but mostly it's in the US, and it covers like, different periods of American history from the past few decades. All right, so one thing that some fans apparently debated early on, and I remember reading the Quantum Leap fact on the internet back in the 90s after I got into the show and after I got online. One of the questions was, does Sam physically leap, or is he mentally leaping into other people's bodies? Now, apparently, from what I recently read, the series creator Donald Bellisario established fairly early on that it was going to be a physical leap. Now, apparently, Scott Bakula didn't get that memo because apparently, I think I read that he was basically saying his mind leaps. And for a while, the series didn't really establish clearly which it was, but eventually enough clues from various episodes showed that it was basically impossible for Sam to be doing some of the things that he was doing if he was sleeping into other people's bodies. For example, in one episode, he leaps into a soldier who's had both legs amputated, but Sam can still walk. In another episode, he leaps into a chimp. That's the only Grosh species leap, by the way. He leaps into a chimp, but he still behaves like a human and he can still walk upright. In two episodes, he leaps into a person with a developmental disability. But he has no problem dealing with that, and he still acts the same. Now, a bit eventually into the series, they started kind of toying with the idea that Sam and the Leapy would sometimes get their mental signals crossed, or they would get little bits of each other stuck in each other's minds. So Sam would sometimes start acting like the other person. And even more strangely, sometimes he would take on their physical conditions. Like he leaped into an old man in one episode that had a heart condition or something, and Sam had to take the guy's pills for it. Even though it was Sam's body that was there, he was physically there, he still took on that heart condition, which is weird. In another episode, he leaped into a pregnant woman, but obviously he wasn't pregnant himself. But they did this weird thing near the end of the episode where the woman's baby disappears from her womb and reappears in Sam. And he even tells Al, "I'm a man. There's no way that I can physically have this baby." So, yeah, they do some weird things a bit. But most of the episodes are just leap of the week. They're like normal type episodes. Now, when I decided to watch this series recently, because I got the complete series set from Walmart, what I decided to do was watch the essential episodes. I made up a list of what I thought were the essential episodes, and I probably watched some that weren't really essential. I threw in the horror type episodes because it was, around the Halloween season, so I wanted to watch those as well. So I ended up watching, let's see. Counting 35 episodes. Let's see. But Genesis, the pilots, it counts as 2 episodes in this episode guide. So basically, I watched. Did I say 35? So that would mean I watched 36. So that's like over a third of the series. Obviously, I skipped most of the basic regular episodes. I wanted to watch the ones mostly that dealt with Sam and Al's personal lives, anything that showed the project, because there weren't too many of those episodes where we actually saw Project Quantum Leap. I wanted to watch all of those, and I wanted to watch any episodes that dealt with the science of leaping and all that type of stuff. So I think basically I covered the main points of all of that when I watched my abbreviated watch through of the series. I watched these episodes from October 10 through November 6th, which actually is the day before Dean Stockwell died, as it turns out. Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to think what to say here. When the series, the present day of the series takes place like in the near future, apparently, compared to when it was actually broadcast. It ran, as I said, ran from 89 to 93. Eventually, it was established that Sam had created Project Quantum Leap in 1995. He must have leaped soon after because there are references to him doing it for 4 years. And they start mentioning in season 4 and again in season 5 that's 1999 currently. But here's the problem. In the season 4 premiere, they mentioned that it's September of 1999. In the season 5 premiere, they mentioned it's February. And then I think later on in season 5, they mentioned it's like April or May. And that's actually only about 2 episodes later. So the timeline is all over the place. They really screwed up with it. In fact, I think in season 4, they mentioned it's been 4 years. In season 5, I think they also mentioned it's been 4 years, but they also say it's been 5 years since Sam started leaping. So they just they cannot keep their dates straight. But so I don't want to like spoil any particular plot points or anything, but the final episode, let's just say it doesn't really resolve much. It's controversial within the fandom because apparently they didn't know whether they were going to get renewed or not. So they had to create an episode that could be either a season finale or a series finale. And they shot they made like a few different possible endings to use. And it just I don't know. I didn't really feel satisfied with it. Um, um, it, it it kind of tries to address who or what is sleeping Sam around, and the explanation that's given, you can accept it or not. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to say anything more about that. But throughout the course of the series, we do learn about Sam and Al's personal histories, other than watching the main episodes that dealt with it. As I said, you could probably glean some more information about their histories from watching all of the episodes because they probably mentioned some stuff. But the ones that really dive deep into their histories and their pasts, I've watched those, so I think I got the main points. We do kind of get to see the layout of the Project Quantum Leap complex a little bit in various episodes. I mean, obviously, we see a bit of the project in the pilot episode, but then we don't really see it again until the season 4 premiere, and then we'll see it more in the final season. In fact, season 5 is the season where a lot of the episodes I watched came from. The earlier seasons, not so much. According to my list, I watched 3 episodes in season 1, or 4, I guess, if you count the pilot episodes, 2 episodes. For season 2, I watched 5 episodes. For season 3, I watched 5 episodes. For season 4, I watched 6 episodes. And for season 5, I watched 16 of the 22 episodes. Yeah, so overall, it's an enjoyable series. It's mostly, for the most part, not too heavy on the science fiction. It's mostly a drama series, but it's very enjoyable, so I highly recommend checking it out. If you want to get it on DVD or Blu-ray, I think it might be on Blu-ray too. Do not get the Universal sets. I mean, those might be out of print already anyway, but what Universal did is they scrubbed most of the songs from the episodes because they didn't want to pay to relicense the music. As Scott Bakula said, Universal cheaped out on the music. But then Mill Creek Entertainment, a much smaller company, re-released the series, and they restored most, if not all, of the songs, because they actually paid to relicense the songs. Kind of says a lot, don't you think? Not sure what else to say about the show without like spoiling anything. One thing that I got to question the waiting room, because why did they not give the Leapy a place to sit down? Do they expect it to just lie down on the table or sit on the table? Seriously, the only thing in that room is the table. What if they have to go to the restroom? It's kind of established that if the Leapy is not in the waiting room, Sam can't leap out. That was established in a season 5 episode, because the Leapy escaped from the waiting room. So, I mean, what if the Leapy has to use the restroom? Do they have to escort them to the restroom? What about sleep? If Sam is on a leap for like a few weeks or whatever, or however long that he has to be there, which is usually more than one day, are the Leapies expected to just sleep on the floor? What about food? Is food delivered to them, or can they go to the cafeteria, or is there a vending machine nearby, or what? We never get answers to these questions. I think I'll probably want to watch most, if not all, of the remaining episodes I skipped. Maybe not right away, but eventually. Just because I remember the show being so good, but and kind of I just want to kind of rewatch it in memory of Dean Stockwell. One thing that I read yesterday on my phone when Scott Bakula had posted a tribute to Dean Stockwell, and he said that Dean had you could tell that he really cared about him. He went in depth and wrote many paragraphs, but what he mentioned once was that Dean Stockwell was apparently a famous child actor. He started acting very early on, and I guess he probably didn't have the best experience on the set. So whenever there was a child actor on Quantum Leap, Dean would make sure to go to the child and check in on them, make sure that they're doing okay, and just like be a pal to them. So that was really nice. Yeah, I guess that's about it. They mentioned like 2 occasions where they actually put the Leapy into the accelerator chamber for various reasons. We don't get to see it, but it's interesting that they try to switch things up a bit sometimes later on in the series to try to help Sam out. Okay, yeah, I think I've rambled long enough. Thanks for joining me. And it's 11:55 p.m. and that's it. Thanks for watching.